Relax now and let your thoughts grow quiet. Close your eyes, soften your breathing, and drift gently into the ancient Greek world, where flowers opened beside sacred paths, and the seasons moved with a slow, patient rhythm. Tonight, we follow Persephone through peaceful fields, shadowed halls, and the calm return of spring, in a story told softly, without hurry, and without fear. In the gentle traditions of ancient Greece, Persephone was often remembered first as the daughter of Demeter, walking peacefully through broad meadows before the great changes of her story. The earth welcomed her with quiet abundance. Wild poppies nodded in soft breezes, white lilies opened beneath the morning light, and delicate violets rested close to cool stones. Every blossom seemed to unfold without haste, following rhythms that belonged to the seasons rather than to hurried hearts. The landscape around her was neither grand nor dramatic. It was simply alive, filled with patient beauty that asked for nothing beyond quiet attention. Ancient poets often described flowering fields as places where divine presence could be felt without loud signs or displays. Persephone moved among blossoms with calm curiosity, noticing each small color and fragrance. Every stem bent gently beneath the passing breeze, while bees traveled slowly from flower to flower in steady patterns. Nothing competed for attention. Instead, each living thing seemed to share the same peaceful rhythm. The fields became a quiet meeting place between earth and sky, where ordinary beauty reflected the careful order cherished by the gods. The flowers surrounding Persephone carried meanings familiar to ancient Greek communities. Poppies suggested peaceful sleep and fertile fields. Violets recalled gentle spring growth. Bright crocuses announced the return of warmer days after winter's quiet rest. These flowers were not gathered in haste. They were admired as gifts already complete, flourishing where rain, sunlight, and rich soil worked together. Persephone's gentle walk became part of this living landscape, blending naturally with the slow unfolding of every blossom beneath the open heavens. Morning light spread softly across the grass, revealing countless petals touched by dew. Each drop reflected the sky for only a brief moment before warming into the day. Ancient farmers understood such mornings well. They knew that healthy fields depended upon patient cycles repeated year after year. Persephone's presence among these flowers reflected that same quiet reliability. She belonged to a world where growth arrived gradually, nourished by time rather than force, and where every season contributed its own gentle purpose. Birdsong drifted gently across the countryside, while distant olive trees marked the edges of cultivated land. Between orchards and open fields, wildflowers created colorful paths that changed little from one peaceful morning to the next. Persephone wandered without urgency, surrounded by familiar landscapes known to generations of Greek families. Her quiet steps disturbed nothing. Grass rose again behind her, and the blossoms continued their calm conversation with sunlight and wind, unchanged except for the passing of another serene day. Demeter's care for the earth surrounded every growing plant. Though Persephone walked alone, the abundance of the fields quietly reflected her mother's divine stewardship. Grain ripened in nearby lands, fruit trees matured in their season, and flowers bloomed according to ancient rhythms. The harmony between mother, daughter, and fertile earth formed one of the central patterns remembered in Greek tradition. It was expressed not through loud miracles, but through harvests, blossoms, and the dependable return of life each year. Among the blossoms, silence was never empty. Gentle winds carried the scent of herbs, distant streams offered a steady murmur, and insects hummed softly through warm air. Ancient storytellers often placed the gods within landscapes already rich with quiet sound rather than dramatic spectacle. Persephone's peaceful presence belonged naturally to this gentle chorus. The world continued its patient work around her, each living voice joining another without hurry or interruption. The flowers themselves lived only for their appointed season. Petals opened, reached their brightest days, and slowly returned to the earth from which they had grown. This gentle rhythm was never treated as loss alone. Instead, it reflected the steady order of nature that ancient Greeks observed throughout fields and gardens. Persephone's quiet walk unfolded within this timeless cycle, where endings and beginnings rested close together beneath the same welcoming sky. Many sanctuaries dedicated to Demeter and Persephone stood near fertile lands where agriculture shaped everyday life. Pilgrims arriving there would have recognized the peaceful beauty of nearby meadows and cultivated fields. Flowers growing beyond temple walls reminded visitors that divine blessings appeared not only within sacred buildings, but throughout ordinary landscapes. Persephone's quiet companionship with blooming earth reflected this simple understanding, allowing familiar nature itself to become a place of reverence. Warm sunlight slowly crossed the landscape as hours passed almost unnoticed. Shadows shifted gently beneath trees, while blossoms continued facing the sky. Persephone lingered without rushing toward another destination. Her calm presence suggested contentment within the present moment, surrounded by growing things that neither hurried nor delayed their own seasons. Ancient myths often balanced moments of great change with long stretches of quiet harmony such as these, allowing peaceful scenes to remain vivid in memory. Soft grasses swayed together like gentle waves beneath passing breezes. Every movement remained small, almost effortless, blending into the wider landscape. Persephone's garments moved with the same quiet rhythm, never separating her from the natural world around her. Rather than standing above creation, she appeared as part of its graceful balance. Ancient audiences would have recognized this closeness between divine figures and the fertile earth that sustained every community throughout Greece. Spring carried its own gentle fragrance across the countryside, mixing fresh soil, flowering herbs, and warm sunlight after cooler months. Such familiar scents marked the beginning of agricultural work as surely as any calendar. Persephone's peaceful walk reflected this season of renewal, when villages prepared fields and gardens with patient care. The blossoms surrounding her quietly celebrated life's return, filling the open landscape with color that seemed both delicate and enduring. Even as the day softened toward afternoon, the meadows remained peaceful. Bees continued their careful work, butterflies drifted above the grasses, and distant hills rested beneath calm blue skies. Persephone neither hurried nor paused with purpose. She simply belonged within the landscape, sharing its quiet pace. Ancient mythology often preserved such gentle moments alongside greater events, reminding listeners that beauty frequently appeared in ordinary hours spent among fields and flowers. The flowering fields became a lasting symbol of gentle abundance in the memory of ancient Greece. Long before harvests filled granaries and before winter returned once more, blossoms quietly covered the earth with simple beauty. Persephone's calm presence among them reflected a world sustained by patient seasons, careful growth, and enduring hope. In the peaceful stillness of those ancient meadows, every flower offered a quiet reminder that nature moves with steady grace, returning again and again through the turning of the years. Long before cities filled the valleys with marble temples, the fertile plains of Greece quietly marked the rhythm of each passing season. Gentle rains softened the earth, and careful hands scattered barley and wheat into waiting soil. Ancient people understood that every harvest depended upon balance between sunlight, rain, and the mysterious generosity of the land itself. Across these peaceful fields, Persephone's story was remembered not only as a tale of divine journeys, but also as an explanation for the steady return of growing life after every quiet winter. The earth was never viewed as ordinary ground alone. Every meadow, orchard, and grain field carried a quiet sense of sacred presence. Farmers greeted the beginning of each planting season with simple offerings, trusting that respectful care for the land reflected respect for the divine order. The slow work of sowing seeds became both daily labor and gentle devotion, woven together so naturally that the boundaries between ordinary life and sacred tradition softly disappeared. Persephone became closely connected with these peaceful landscapes because her yearly return symbolized the awakening of vegetation across the countryside. As she emerged once more into the sunlight, blossoms unfolded along hillsides, grasses brightened the valleys, and young shoots rose quietly through the soil. Ancient storytellers found comfort in this dependable rhythm, seeing in it a promise that seasons moved with patient certainty rather than haste. The wide plains of regions such as Boeotia, Thessaly, and Messenia provided generous harvests that sustained communities throughout the year. Their open fields stretched beneath changing skies, carrying waves of grain that shimmered softly with every breeze. These landscapes became living reminders that prosperity often arrived through steady patience rather than sudden abundance, encouraging careful observation of nature's gentle pace. Wildflowers quietly accompanied cultivated crops. Bright poppies, delicate daisies, and fragrant herbs appeared along field edges without careful planning. Their simple beauty softened the boundaries between farmland and wilderness, suggesting that nature preferred harmony over strict order. Even where people worked diligently, the landscape continued expressing its own quiet creativity, adding unexpected colors to familiar paths. Olive groves often stood near fertile fields, their silvery leaves reflecting changing light throughout the day. While grain provided daily bread, olive trees promised lasting nourishment across generations. Together, they represented stability and continuity, growing alongside the seasonal cycle associated with Persephone. The contrast between evergreen branches and changing harvests quietly illustrated different expressions of nature's enduring generosity. Gentle streams crossed many agricultural valleys before joining larger rivers or disappearing beneath rocky ground. Their steady movement supplied precious water for crops and offered peaceful places where birds gathered each morning. Flowing water reminded observers that life depended upon many quiet gifts working together, each one small alone, yet essential within the greater pattern of the countryside. The changing colors of the fields became familiar markers of the year. Tender green shoots gradually deepened into rich gold before harvest, then rested beneath softer autumn tones. Winter eventually covered the fields with stillness instead of blossoms, yet this calm season was never viewed as permanent. Persephone's eventual return assured that quiet landscapes would awaken once again. Small shrines dedicated to agricultural deities sometimes overlooked the surrounding countryside. Their modest presence reminded travelers that gratitude accompanied successful harvests. Rather than towering monuments, these sacred places often blended naturally into the landscape, allowing stone, grass, and sky to exist together in peaceful balance. Worship reflected the same calm rhythm that shaped planting and gathering. Morning mist frequently settled across valleys before the warmth of the sun slowly lifted it away. During these quiet hours, distant hills appeared softened, and every blade of grass held tiny drops of dew. Such gentle moments encouraged careful observation rather than hurried movement, inviting appreciation for small changes that unfolded almost unnoticed across the sacred countryside. Birdsong accompanied the beginning of each working day, Larks rose above open fields while swallows crossed the brightening sky in graceful arcs. Their steady presence formed part of the familiar soundscape surrounding ancient farms, blending naturally with rustling grain and gentle breezes. Together, these quiet sounds created an atmosphere where labor and peace comfortably existed side by side. The mythology surrounding Persephone encouraged people to understand seasonal change as meaningful rather than uncertain. Instead of fearing every winter, they anticipated the quiet return of warmth and renewal. This perspective transformed ordinary agricultural cycles into reflections of divine harmony, where endings naturally prepared the way for beginnings without haste or struggle. Even after harvest, the empty fields possessed their own quiet beauty. Short stubble covered the earth, and gentle winds moved freely across open ground beneath broad autumn skies. Rest was understood as part of abundance itself. Just as people paused after gathering grain, the land also entered its season of calm before beginning another peaceful cycle of growth. Across generations, these sacred fields remain places where mythology and everyday life gently met. Persephone's story was carried not only in songs and poetry, but also in the simple appearance of fresh green shoots after winter had passed. Every returning spring quietly affirmed the enduring partnership between the earth, the seasons, and the patient hope that ancient Greece found within its fertile land. As the quiet meadow rested beneath the warm light of afternoon, Persephone wandered gently among wildflowers, gathering blossoms with patient hands. Ancient poets remembered this peaceful moment as one filled with fragrance, soft grasses, and calm skies. The earth beneath her feet had long carried hidden mysteries, known to gods far older than humankind. Nothing in the landscape hurried. Every flower opened according to its own season, and every breeze crossed the fields with gentle purpose. In Greek tradition, this tranquil beginning stood beside the profound changes that would quietly shape the rhythm of every coming spring. The earth slowly opened, revealing a passage into the hidden kingdom below. Ancient storytellers described this moment not with endless noise, but with the quiet certainty that divine events often arrived beyond mortal expectation. Hades emerged from the depths in his dark chariot, ruler of a realm that rested beneath mountains and rivers. His kingdom was not imagined as a place of constant torment, but as the destination shared by nearly every soul. The descent marked a crossing between two peaceful worlds, each governed by different kinds of order and silence. The road beneath the earth was imagined as calm and ancient, carved through enduring stone, untouched by changing seasons. Persephone traveled deeper into a realm where sunlight gave way to gentle shadows, yet the world itself remained ordered and still. Greek imagination often pictured the underworld as vast, quiet, and carefully governed, with rivers, gardens, and broad plains stretching far beyond human sight. Even in darkness, there existed balance rather than chaos. Every path belonged to an older rhythm, moving steadily without haste through the unseen foundations of the world. Far above, the fields remained unchanged for a time. The breeze continued across olive groves, shepherds guided their flocks, and distant villages followed familiar routines. Yet one gentle absence slowly settled over the land. The myths often remind us that divine events unfolded alongside ordinary life, unseen by those continuing their daily work. The surface world and the hidden world existed together, separated only by the boundaries known to the gods. Quietly, both realms continued their own peaceful order beneath the same eternal sky. Within the underworld stood halls built of enduring stone, unchanged by rain, harvest, or passing years. Ancient Greeks imagined this kingdom as solemn rather than violent, ruled according to ancient laws that neither gods nor mortals ignored lightly. Persephone entered a place where silence carried dignity instead of fear. Every doorway, every pillar, and every distant chamber reflected permanence. Unlike the changing earth above, this hidden realm rested beyond the turning of seasons, remaining steady through generations that came and quietly passed away. The quiet rivers of the underworld marked gentle boundaries between different regions of the unseen world. Greek tradition named several sacred rivers, each carrying its own meaning within mythology. Flowing without urgency, these waters reflected the calm passage of eternity rather than the rush of earthly streams. Their steady movement reminded listeners that even hidden places possess their own landscapes, shaped by divine order. In this silent kingdom, water continued its patient journey beneath mountains, unseen by the bright valleys above. As Persephone settled into her new surroundings, she gradually became more than a visitor. Ancient myths often describe her with quiet dignity, adapting to the responsibilities of her place beside Hades. Rather than losing her identity, she slowly came to embody two worlds at once. She remained the daughter of fertile fields while also becoming the respected queen of the realm beneath the earth. In this gentle transformation, Greek mythology found harmony between growth above and stillness below. The hidden kingdom was imagined as remarkably spacious, with meadows, groves, and distant horizons extending beneath the earth. Ancient poets did not picture only darkness, but also places where souls wandered peacefully according to divine law. The landscape possessed its own quiet beauty, shaped not by sunlight but by timeless stillness. Here, change arrived slowly, if at all. Every stone and pathway seemed to belong to an age beyond memory, resting in calm permanence beneath the living world. Time itself seemed different below the earth. Without sunrise or sunset to measure the hours, existence followed the enduring rhythm established by immortal powers. Greek mythology often contrasts the changing cycles of the surface with the constancy of the underworld. Persephone's presence gradually linked these two forms of time. Through her, the world above would continue to bloom and rest, while the hidden kingdom remained peacefully unchanged, preserving its ancient silence through every generation. Above the earth, Demeter searched patiently across mountains, valleys, and fertile plains. Her quiet determination reflected the deep bond between mother and daughter that stood at the heart of the myth. Although sorrow entered the story, it unfolded with solemn grace rather than sudden violence. Ancient listeners understood that even the gods experienced longing and devotion. These emotions became part of the natural order, helping explain why the earth itself would one day rest before blooming once more. The peaceful balance between the visible world and the hidden world slowly revealed itself through Persephone's new role. She became a bridge between fertile fields and enduring stone, carrying meaning from one realm into the other. Greek mythology often celebrated balance rather than simple opposition. Growth required rest, light was followed by shadow, and every beginning gently prepared the way for renewal. Persephone's descent quietly expressed this timeless pattern without haste or conflict. The ancient storytellers treated the underworld with respect rather than fear. It represented an inevitable destination governed by divine justice and lasting order. Persephone's presence added gentleness to this solemn realm, reminding listeners that compassion could exist even where life had ended. Her quiet dignity softened the boundaries between endings and beginnings. Through her story, the unseen kingdom became not merely a place beneath the earth, but an enduring part of the greater harmony of creation. Deep beneath forests, rivers, and cultivated fields, the hidden kingdom continued its silent existence while life flourished above. Neither realm erased the other. Instead, Both belong to the same ordered universe imagined by the ancient Greeks. Persephone's journey revealed that unseen places could hold purpose equal to those illuminated by the sun. In stillness, the foundations of nature quietly endured, supporting every season that unfolded across the living earth. The gentle descent beneath the earth became one of Greek mythology's enduring reflections on transformation, continuity, and peaceful balance. Persephone's path carried her through shadow without extinguishing the promise of future blossoms. The story invited quiet contemplation of cycles that touched both gods and mortals alike. Seasons would continue to turn, fields would bloom again, and the ancient bond between the upper world and the hidden kingdom would remain woven into the calm rhythm of nature for generations to come. Far beneath the familiar hills of Greece lay the quiet realm ruled by Hades, a place imagined not as endless punishment, but as the peaceful destination of nearly every mortal soul. Persephone came to know its gentle stillness through measured seasons, walking corridors where time seemed to rest. The air remained calm, untouched by changing winds or sudden storms. Silence settled over broad stone halls like a soft cloak, allowing every footstep to fade into the distance. In this ancient kingdom, nothing hurried. Everything moved with the patient rhythm of eternity, steady and untroubled. The Greeks imagined the underworld as an ordered kingdom with rivers, meadows, gates, and quiet courts. Each place had its purpose, and each path followed ancient custom. Persephone's presence brought balance beside Hades, whose rule depended not upon anger but upon careful fairness. Together they represented stability rather than chaos. The kingdom remained constant while the living world above shifted through harvests, rains, and changing skies. Deep below, every season blended into one peaceful continuity, where stillness itself seemed to become part of the landscape. Ancient storytellers described the palace of Hades as magnificent without needing bright sunlight. Precious metals, polished stone, and quiet shadows shaped its beauty. Lamps glowed softly along wide chambers, revealing carved walls and silent doorways. Persephone walked these halls with composed dignity, becoming not merely a visitor but a respected queen. Her calm presence complemented the enduring strength of the kingdom around her. Even in darkness, there was order, craftsmanship, and an enduring sense that every corner had remained unchanged for countless generations. Many rivers flowed through the underworld in Greek tradition, each carrying its own meaning. The gentle movement of unseen waters marked boundaries between memory, life, and rest. Though later stories gave these rivers dramatic qualities, they also suggested quiet passage rather than constant turmoil. Persephone often appeared near these timeless waters, where reflections shimmered without wind. Their slow currents reminded every traveler that the kingdom below followed its own peaceful order, untouched by the hurried concerns of the surface world. The famous pomegranate remained a quiet symbol of Persephone's bond with the underworld. In Greek myth, the fruit connected her to the realm she came to share with Hades. Rather than representing conflict alone, it also reflected the acceptance of lasting responsibilities. Within the calm halls, its deep crimson seeds became a reminder that every choice could shape the rhythm of seasons and kingdoms alike. The simple fruit quietly linked the fertile earth above with the peaceful world resting far below. The souls who entered the underworld were imagined as gentle shades, leaving behind the hurried weight of earthly life. They moved quietly through broad spaces where memory lingered like distant echoes. Persephone watched over this realm with quiet compassion befitting her place as queen. The stillness surrounding these ancient halls suggested reflection more than fear. Here, stories of countless generations rested together, woven into the timeless fabric of a kingdom, where change came only with extraordinary moments. The palace doors stood as symbols of permanence. They separated the living world from the realm beneath without constant movement or noise. Ancient myths often describe divine thresholds as sacred places where transitions carried great meaning. Persephone crossed these boundaries according to the rhythms established by fate, never in haste. Every entrance and departure reflected a larger balance within the cosmos. Even the doors themselves seemed to embody quiet patience, standing firm through ages beyond ordinary human memory. Although sunlight did not reach the underworld, Greek imagination filled it with its own subtle forms of illumination. Soft glimmers reflected from stone, precious metals, and tranquil waters, creating gentle contrasts rather than deep gloom. Persephone's presence fit naturally within this muted landscape. She became a figure associated with calm grace, moving through spaces where brightness came not from the sky, but from the quiet order maintained throughout the kingdom. Every chamber seemed settled into lasting peace. Hades himself was rarely portrayed as cruel within Greek mythology. Instead, he fulfilled the solemn duty of governing the dead with unwavering fairness. Persephone shared this orderly realm beside him, adding balance to its enduring structure. Together, they represented responsibilities that existed beyond ordinary human fears. Their kingdom continued steadily, while empires rose and disappeared above the earth. Deep below, the calm halls preserved their ancient silence without interruption from passing centuries. The architecture imagined for the underworld reflected permanence more than grandeur. Wide corridors, immense pillars, and carefully shaped stone conveyed stability rather than excess. Persephone walked through spaces built to endure beyond mortal generations. Every surface suggested patience, every chamber quiet endurance. There were no hurried builders or changing fashions here. The kingdom existed outside ordinary time, preserving its measured harmony, while the seasons above completed their endless cycle again and again. In many ancient traditions, silence carried its own sacred quality. The calm of the underworld reflected thoughtful stillness instead of emptiness. Persephone's presence encouraged balance between life remembered and life continuing elsewhere. Her quiet walks through the palace became part of the kingdom's steady rhythm. Nothing demanded urgency. Even the echoes seemed gentle, fading naturally into spacious halls where countless years passed almost unnoticed beneath the earth. The fields known as asphodel meadows were imagined as peaceful resting places for many ordinary souls. Their quiet expanses balanced the more famous regions described in later myths. Persephone's kingdom therefore contained not only solemn halls, but also gentle landscapes shaped by stillness. Ancient flowers, pale grasses, and endless horizons suggested calm rather than despair. The meadows extended peacefully beneath an unchanging sky, becoming another expression of the underworld's enduring tranquility. As seasons turned above the earth, the underworld itself remained unchanged. Its calm halls neither blossomed nor withered. Instead, they preserved a steady rhythm that contrasted with the ever-changing world of sunlight. Persephone carried memories of both realms, linking fertile springtime with timeless stillness. Her unique place between these worlds became one of the most enduring themes in Greek mythology, expressing harmony rather than opposition between different parts of the natural order. Within the peaceful halls of the underworld, every stone, river, doorway, and quiet chamber formed part of an ancient kingdom that valued balance above all else. Persephone's reign there reflected dignity, patience, and continuity. The myths remembered her not only as the returning maiden of spring, but also as the composed queen who understood the silence beneath the earth. Together, these two roles completed a cycle that joined darkness and light into one calm, an enduring story. In the quiet halls beneath the earth, where time seemed to move with a gentler rhythm, Persephone accepted a small portion of a pomegranate. Ancient Greek tradition regarded shared food as more than simple nourishment. To eat within a place often carried the meaning of belonging, creating a bond that words alone could not dissolve. The fruit itself, bright as polished ruby, contrasted softly with the calm shadows surrounding it. Later storytellers would remember these few seeds not as symbols of haste or violence, but as the beginning of an enduring agreement woven carefully into the order of gods, seasons, and the living world. The number of seeds varies gently across ancient sources. Some poets spoke of 6, while others offered different counts, reminding us that Greek mythology was shared through many voices rather than one fixed text. What remained constant was their quiet importance. Such a small act came to represent a lasting connection between two realms. The story encourages patience with differing traditions, allowing each version to settle like leaves upon calm water. Every telling preserved the same peaceful truth that even the smallest gesture could become part of the world's lasting harmony. The agreement that followed was not presented as endless sorrow. Instead, it became a careful balance between absence and return. Persephone would spend part of the year beside Hades in the Underworld and part with her mother Demeter beneath the open sky. This gentle rhythm reflected the changing seasons familiar to ancient farmers. Winter would quietly yield to spring, harvest would follow growth, and rest would prepare the fields for renewal once more. The myth transformed natural cycles into a peaceful pattern carried by divine promises. For the Greeks, promises among the gods carried extraordinary weight. Oaths and agreements helped preserve order across heaven, earth, and the hidden places below. The arrangement surrounding Persephone was remembered as part of this greater harmony rather than a simple personal choice. Each season unfolded according to an ancient understanding that linked divine actions with the lives of ordinary people. Shepherds, gardeners, and travelers experienced these changes every year, often without speaking of the quiet promises that mythology imagined behind the turning of the calendar. The pomegranate itself already held rich symbolism in Greek culture long before later generations reflected upon Persephone's story. Its countless seeds suggested abundance, continuity, and the hidden promise of future life. The fruit appeared in ceremonies connected with marriage, family, and renewal, reminding people that many beginnings emerged from what seemed small and simple. Holding a single fruit in the hand could evoke entire orchards waiting patiently to grow. Within mythology, this familiar symbol quietly connected the worlds of agriculture, family tradition, and divine storytelling. Demeter's grief eased whenever Persephone returned to the upper world. Ancient listeners imagined fields responding almost immediately, though gently rather than suddenly. Buds opened, grain ripened, and flowers appeared across valleys warmed by the returning sun. The earth itself became a reflection of reunion. Every blossom recalled not only joy, but also the certainty that departure and return belong together. In this way, spring was never merely the end of winter. It became the visible expression of an ancient promise quietly fulfilled once again. When Persephone descended once more beneath the earth, the landscape entered its season of quiet rest. Ancient farmers understood that fields required periods of stillness before new growth could begin. The myth reflected this agricultural wisdom with remarkable gentleness. Dormant seeds rested unseen beneath the soil, carrying silent potential through colder months. Nothing was truly lost. Instead, life waited with patient confidence until warmth returned. The peaceful rhythm of the countryside echoed the calm journey of the goddess between two enduring homes. Later poets often described Persephone not only as the youthful daughter of Demeter, but also as the composed queen of the underworld. Her yearly journeys allowed her to belong to both identities without abandoning either. She represented growth above and thoughtful stillness below. Rather than opposing one another, these roles completed a balanced whole. Ancient mythology frequently embraced such harmony, allowing one figure to embody different truths at once. Persephone's story became a gentle reminder that change itself could bring lasting stability. Greek artists occasionally included pomegranates in painted pottery, sculpture, and sacred decoration. The fruit carried meanings that viewers would have recognized without lengthy explanation. It suggested fertility, continuity, and the mysterious bond between visible harvests and hidden beginnings. Even when displayed quietly beside other offerings, the pomegranate invited reflection on life's repeating patterns. Through familiar objects, mythology entered daily experience, allowing ordinary meals and seasonal festivals to recall stories passed carefully from one generation to the next. The promise linking Persephone's journeys became inseparable from the rhythm of the agricultural year. Grain was planted, fields rested, vineyards matured, and orchards slowly prepared their fruit according to reliable seasons. The myth offered a graceful explanation for these familiar changes without seeking to replace careful observation. Instead, divine stories and everyday experience gently accompanied one another. Watching the fields transform became another way of remembering the peaceful agreement carried by a handful of ancient seeds. Within the sacred traditions associated with Demeter and Persephone, especially those remembered at Eleusis, themes of renewal and hopeful return held quiet importance. Although many details of those mysteries remained secret, ancient writers respected their promise of comfort concerning life's continuing cycles. Persephone's yearly movement between worlds harmonized naturally with these ideas of transformation. Rather than ending in despair, the myth gently suggested that every departure carried within it the possibility of peaceful return, much like the dependable arrival of spring. The pomegranate seeds remained few, yet their meaning expanded across centuries of storytelling. Poets, artists, philosophers, and ordinary families each found gentle reflections within the tale. Some emphasized duty, others seasonal renewal, while many simply admired the quiet beauty of balance between different realms. Myths endured because they welcomed thoughtful interpretation without losing their familiar shape. Like seeds planted beneath patient soil, each retelling carried the possibility of new understanding while remaining rooted in ancient tradition. As evening settled over Greece, orchards grew still and distant hills faded into gentle blue. Somewhere beyond sight, Persephone's story continued with calm certainty, guiding the steady turning of the seasons. The ancient promise needed no haste and no grand display. It unfolded quietly through blooming flowers, ripening fruit, resting fields, and returning light. Each year repeated the familiar pattern, inviting peaceful confidence that the natural world remained faithful to rhythms remembered long before written history. The story of the pomegranate seeds closes not with finality, but with gentle continuity. Ancient listeners knew that spring would always follow winter in its appointed time, just as Persephone would return once more to the bright fields loved by Demeter. The earth breathed according to this enduring pattern, neither hurried nor delayed. In the quiet imagination of Greek mythology, a small crimson fruit became part of the great conversation between heaven, earth, and the peaceful mysteries resting beneath them all. After Persephone disappeared beneath the earth, Demeter did not answer sorrow with anger alone. She wandered patiently across valleys, quiet islands, and familiar fields, searching with steady determination. Her footsteps became part of the landscape, slow and thoughtful, while streams continued their gentle courses and distant mountains watched in silence. Farmers noticed that their goddess no longer smiled over ripening grain, yet the world itself remained calm, as though it respectfully shared in her long search. Every road carried the same quiet hope that one more sunrise might reveal the daughter she loved beyond every harvest. Demeter laid aside the joyful rhythms of cultivation. She no longer encouraged tender shoots to rise quickly from the soil, and orchards rested instead of flourishing. This was not a punishment born of haste, but the natural stillness that followed a mother's deep absence. Seeds remained safely beneath the earth, waiting without complaint. The fields seemed to breathe more slowly, preserving their quiet strength beneath soft winds and gentle clouds. Even in their silence, they held the promise that life itself had not vanished, only entered a season of patient waiting. The resting earth reflected Demeter's own heart. Meadows that once shimmered with flowers became gentle stretches of pale grasses, neither barren nor forgotten. Rivers still moved toward the sea, birds continued their distant songs, and the stars returned each evening with dependable calm. Ancient storytellers imagined that nature quietly mirrored the feelings of the immortals, allowing every season to express a different kind of beauty. Even in this quieter landscape, the world remained whole, carrying its hidden strength beneath the surface, until brighter days would naturally return. Demeter's sacred torch accompanied many of her silent journeys. Its steady light was less a blazing fire than a faithful companion against the dimness of uncertainty. Through forests and along forgotten paths, the flame represented enduring hope rather than urgency. The quiet glow reminded those who told the myth that love often continues gently through long seasons without losing its purpose. The torch illuminated only a small distance ahead, yet that was enough for each careful step across the ancient world. Villages honored Demeter even during the season when fields offered little abundance. Small offerings remained at her shrines, expressing gratitude for harvests remembered and faith in harvests yet to come. The goddess did not forget humanity, even while her thoughts remained fixed upon Persephone. Ancient devotion recognized that divine grief and human hope could exist together in peaceful balance. The quiet rituals continued beneath open skies, linking generations through patience rather than celebration. As the land rested, seeds slept beneath layers of cool earth. They were not lifeless but quietly complete, holding future leaves and blossoms within their small forms. Greek imagination often found comfort in such hidden beginnings, where apparent stillness concealed remarkable possibility. Demeter's sorrow became reflected in these sleeping seeds, each one waiting for the proper season instead of forcing its growth. The calm earth became a gentle keeper of promises that time alone would awaken. The mountains stood unchanged throughout Demeter's wandering, their slopes carrying pine forests, quiet springs, and drifting mist. They neither hurried nor delayed the passing seasons. Their steady presence offered a silent reminder that the oldest parts of creation endure with remarkable patience. Demeter crossed these landscapes again and again, accompanied only by the gentle rhythm of travel. In their stillness, the mountains reflected the quiet endurance that shaped her search. Helios, who watched the world from above each day, had seen much of what unfolded across the earth. Yet even with knowledge carried by sunlight itself, the movement of the seasons followed its measured course. The myth presents no hurried solution, allowing grief and understanding to arrive gradually. This slow unfolding gives the story its peaceful rhythm, where every day quietly prepares the next without breaking the calm order of nature. Demeter remained the guardian of grain, though the fields temporarily rested beneath her care. Her gifts had not disappeared from the world forever. They simply waited alongside her, sharing the same quiet pause that filled the countryside. Ancient listeners would have recognized this gentle rhythm from their own lives, when fields were left undisturbed before another season of planting. Rest itself became part of nature's faithful cycle. The winds moved softly across empty fields, carrying dry grasses in graceful patterns. Nothing in the landscape struggled against the passing season. Trees released their leaves without resistance. Streams continued their quiet conversations with smooth stones, and distant hills rested beneath pale sunlight. The myth invites attention to these peaceful transitions, where endings become gentle pauses rather than final departures. Demeter's sorrow settled naturally into this quiet world without disturbing its enduring harmony. Even the olive groves seemed quieter during Demeter's long search. Their silver-green leaves reflected changing light with calm consistency, reminding travelers that endurance often appears ordinary. The oldest trees continued to stand through every season, rooted deeply within the same earth that sheltered sleeping seeds. Their patient stillness echoed the goddess's unwavering love, showing that lasting devotion rarely needs loud expression to remain strong. The ancient Greeks understood that agriculture depended upon rhythms larger than any single day. Their myths reflected careful observation of planting, waiting, growth, harvest, and rest. Demeter's story gently connected these familiar patterns with divine experience, allowing human life and sacred tradition to move together. The resting earth was not abandoned. It simply followed the quiet breathing of time itself, preparing for renewal with calm certainty. As the months passed, hope never disappeared from Demeter's heart. It became quieter, steadier, and more enduring, much like the hidden life beneath winter fields. Nothing in the story suggests that love faded with passing time. Instead, it settled into patient endurance, trusting that truth would eventually emerge. The calm strength of this hope became one of the gentlest gifts within the ancient myth. Before spring could return, the earth accepted its season of peaceful rest with remarkable grace. Demeter's patient grief became woven into the landscape, teaching that stillness can protect as well as silence can comfort. Beneath every quiet field lay the unseen beginning of future blossoms, carefully preserved until their proper moment. In this gentle pause, both goddess and earth waited together, held by the slow and dependable rhythm that guided the ancient world through every season. When the appointed season arrived, Persephone rose gently from the quiet kingdom below and began her return to the world of sunlight. Her journey was not one of haste, but of ancient rhythm, following the agreement that balanced two realms. As she traveled upward, the earth seemed to pause in quiet expectation. Nothing awakened all at once. Instead, the first signs of renewal appeared softly, as though the land itself had been patiently waiting for her familiar footsteps through countless peaceful ages. Demeter welcomed her daughter with deep and quiet joy. The sorrow that had rested over fields and hills gradually lifted like a gentle morning mist. Grain once hidden beneath the soil prepared to grow again. Trees slowly filled with fresh buds, and streams carried clear water through peaceful valleys. The return of abundance came without noise or celebration. Nature answered with calm certainty, honoring the enduring bond between mother and daughter through every unfolding leaf. The blossoms that appeared across meadows were more than signs of changing weather. In Greek imagination, they reflected Persephone's presence upon the earth once more. Wildflowers opened quietly across hillsides, filling open spaces with gentle color. Fragrant herbs stretched toward the warming sun, while orchards prepared for another season of fruit. Each small flower became part of a familiar pattern that returned faithfully year after year, with calm and dependable grace. Farmers understood these seasonal changes as gifts connected to the harmony between the divine and the natural world. Seeds were placed into softened earth with patience rather than urgency. Fields that had rested through winter welcomed careful hands once again. Every planted grain carried quiet hope, supported by the belief that the blessings of Demeter and the return of Persephone would guide another peaceful harvest in its proper time. Birdsong gradually returned to forests and open valleys as daylight lingered a little longer each evening. Animals emerged from winter shelter to wander peaceful hillsides and woodland paths. Gentle breezes carried the scent of damp earth and fresh leaves. Nothing in nature hurried beyond its appointed rhythm. Every living thing seemed to remember an ancient pattern that unfolded steadily with calm confidence beneath the warming sky. The ancient Greeks celebrated these returning seasons with gratitude rather than spectacle. Offerings of grain, flowers, and simple foods honored the divine powers that sustained life upon the land. These traditions reflected an understanding that prosperity depended upon harmony with the cycles of nature. The return of spring was not only beautiful but reassuring, reminding every generation that renewal would come again after each quiet winter. Although Persephone walked once more beneath the bright sky, the memory of the underworld remained part of her story. She belonged to both realms without conflict, moving according to an ancient agreement that preserved balance. Her gentle presence above did not erase what had come before. Instead, it gave greater meaning to every blossom and every warm breeze, reminding the world that light and stillness could exist together. The pomegranate remained a quiet symbol of this lasting connection. Its fruit recalled the promise that linked Persephone to the underworld, while also allowing her joyful return each spring. Rather than representing sorrow alone, it became a reminder that life often carries more than one truth at the same time. Ancient myths embraced this gentle complexity with calm acceptance rather than fear. As days grew warmer, rivers reflected bright skies once more, and gentle winds moved through young grain with quiet music. The countryside gradually filled with familiar sights that had disappeared during winter's rest. Shepherds guided their flocks across green hills, while orchards welcomed bees among delicate blossoms. The world seemed peaceful not because nothing changed, but because every change arrived in its proper season. Poets often imagined that every flower opening across the countryside greeted Persephone with silent affection. Meadows became living reminders of her gentle influence upon the earth. Their beauty was never permanent, yet this made each season more precious. The blossoms would fade in time, but they would also return, just as the ancient cycle promised with quiet faithfulness every passing year. The changing seasons taught patience more than certainty. Winter was never the final chapter, and spring never remained forever. Instead, each followed the other in an endless circle that required neither fear nor haste. Persephone's journey reflected this timeless order, showing that endings could become beginnings, and that rest prepared the world for gentle renewal once again. In many ancient communities, daily life followed these seasonal rhythms with quiet respect. Work, celebration, planting, and harvest all unfolded according to the changing earth rather than hurried ambition. Persephone's return became part of this familiar rhythm, woven into ordinary moments as naturally as sunrise and sunset. Her story belonged not only to the gods, but also to every peaceful field and garden. The myth gently reminds us that renewal often arrives gradually. Tiny leaves appear before full branches, and small blossoms come before abundant harvests. Ancient storytellers found comfort in this slow unfolding. The return of spring did not require dramatic miracles. It asked only for time, patience, and the faithful turning of the seasons that had guided the earth since the earliest days of memory. And so the peaceful return of Persephone became one of the enduring symbols of hope within Greek mythology. Every spring carried quiet echoes of her journey back into warmth and growing light. Fields ripened, flowers opened, and gentle breezes crossed the ancient landscape once more. In that calm rhythm of departure and return, generations found reassurance that life, after every season of stillness, would awaken again. Persephone came to hold a place unlike that of any other Olympian. She belonged both to the bright fields where grain ripened beneath warm skies and to the quiet kingdom beneath the earth. Ancient poets described her not simply as a visitor to the underworld, but as its rightful queen beside Hades. This double role made her a figure of balance rather than division. The same goddess could receive the fragrance of spring flowers and also preside over the silent halls where every mortal soul would one day arrive. In Greek thought, these two realms existed together as natural parts of the same world. As queen below, Persephone was often portrayed with quiet dignity instead of fear. The underworld was not imagined as a place of endless punishment for most people, but as the resting place of the departed. Within its calm boundaries, order mattered more than emotion. Persephone shared in maintaining that order, receiving those who crossed the unseen rivers and entered their final home. Her presence softened the image of the realm, reminding listeners that even the deepest shadows could be governed with grace and steady wisdom. Ancient artists sometimes gave Persephone a torch, a symbol that carried gentle meaning. The flame was not one of battle but of guidance, illuminating quiet paths through darkness. In sacred stories, the torch recalled both the search of Demeter and the enduring connection between mother and daughter. Even beneath the earth, light could exist without banishing the shadows. The image suggested that knowledge, memory, and hope could accompany every journey, however hidden it might seem. Persephone's authority reflected the Greek understanding that life and death belonged to one continuous cycle. Fields produced grain only after seeds disappeared beneath the soil. Trees shed their leaves before new buds appeared. The earth itself seemed to teach that endings often prepared quiet beginnings. As queen of two worlds, Persephone embodied this rhythm without haste or conflict. Her yearly movement between above and below mirrored the patient patterns already visible in forests, orchards, vineyards, and cultivated fields. Unlike many rulers in myth who displayed power through conquest, Persephone's influence appeared through presence. She spoke rarely in surviving stories, yet every season reflected her unseen passage. Her silence gave later readers the impression of quiet confidence. She did not need to command storms or raise armies. Instead, flowers, grain, and the changing earth gently announced where she had been. The landscape itself became her language, repeating the same peaceful story year after year. Many sacred places honored both Demeter and Persephone together. Their worship celebrated harvests, renewal, and the mysteries of existence that connected generations of families. Farmers understood that the earth concealed much beneath its surface before offering abundance again. Persephone represented that hidden interval of waiting. Her queenship reminded worshippers that what could not be seen was often just as important as what flourished beneath the open sky. The Greeks did not always separate beauty from seriousness. Persephone could wear a crown while still carrying spring blossoms. She could preside over quiet halls below and later walk among flowering meadows above. These images were not contradictions but complements. Together, they expressed a vision of nature in which tenderness and solemnity belonged to the same enduring order. Her crown united these meanings with calm simplicity. Some ancient hymns addressed Persephone with deep respect, recognizing her as a goddess whose decisions carried lasting importance. Mortals approached her with reverence because she stood at the meeting place between earthly life and the unseen world. Yet these hymns often carried a peaceful tone instead of terror. They reflected acceptance that every life follows its own measured course through the seasons established by the gods. The pomegranate remained one of Persephone's enduring symbols. Its many seeds suggested abundance, hidden potential, and lasting connection. Ancient listeners remembered that even a small fruit could carry profound meaning within a myth. Its rounded form, rich color, and countless seeds quietly echoed the cycles of return that shaped the natural world. The fruit became a reminder that small acts could carry consequences stretching gently across the seasons. Persephone's realm beneath the earth was often imagined as broad and still rather than chaotic. Rivers flowed without hurry, groves stood in quiet silence, and distant plains stretched beyond ordinary sight. Within this landscape, she ruled beside Hades with measured composure. The absence of haste matched the timeless character of the underworld itself, where change came slowly, and every soul eventually found its place among the shades. When spring returned, Persephone did not abandon one identity for another. She remained the same goddess while moving between different realms. This continuity gave comfort to ancient audiences, suggesting that change need not erase what came before. A person, like the seasons, could carry many roles while remaining whole. Persephone's story gently illustrated this enduring harmony between transformation and constancy. Artists across centuries continued to portray Persephone with calm expression and graceful posture. Whether holding flowers, grain, or a torch, she appeared composed rather than dramatic. This visual tradition reflected the lasting appeal of her mythology. She represented quiet endurance instead of sudden triumph. Her dignity seemed to grow naturally from the steady turning of the seasons themselves, familiar to every generation that watched fields awaken after winter. To farmers, travelers, and poets alike, Persephone became a reminder that the earth always carried hidden stories beneath its surface. Seeds rested unseen before sprouting. Roots quietly strengthened trees through every season. Streams flowed underground before returning to daylight. Her queenship reflected these patient mysteries, encouraging an appreciation for rhythms too slow to notice in a single day, but unmistakable across the passing years. As queen of two worlds, Persephone stood at the heart of one of Greek mythology's gentlest patterns. She united spring with winter, sunlight with quiet shadow, and harvest with restful stillness beneath the soil. Rather than opposing one another, these elements completed a single circle. Her story offered an enduring image of balance, where every season arrived in its own time, and every departure carried the quiet promise of return.